Hello and welcome. So today I'm going to be talking about Hydroid and going over some of the different builds that I've been using on him since his rework was a few years ago, and there's been a few changes and a different build path with the old piece with Arcane Persistence. I want to show off a different build in case you don't want to do the whole, persistent shtick. There are different build options for Hydroid, and just kind of highlight those and, show those off and whatnot, because I still feel like the perception of Hydroid, even though his rework was very good and he is a much, much better Warframe now, I still feel like it's still like fairly negative. So hopefully, the builds and the showcase at the end and whatnot will hopefully help with all of that. And, don't get me wrong, I completely understand that like Hydroid in the past was not very great to say the least, but the version of Hydroid that we have at current is miles and leagues ahead of what it used to be and is a very, very strong Warframe and can be used realistically anywhere. So, yeah, let's just go ahead and hop into it. Alright, so let's go ahead and start off with the Archon shards here. I've got 2 strength, 2 duration, and 1 casting speed. So, none of these are really needed. This is just what I kind of run that has worked for me. These aren't hitting any type of specific breakpoint or anything like that, so feel free to change and modify and tweak these as you see fit. It won't really change too much with the build, just change it however you'd like. For the passive here, just kind of going over the abilities here just kind of quickly. His passive is more or less just you can armor strip things with corrosive without needing the green shards. So yeah, his passive is very, very strong, and it just kind of happens by just using his kit and his gun. So his passive is, well, actually just a passive, so it'll just, happen as you're playing the game, and it happens pretty quickly, especially when you're just kind of, well, spamming his Tempest Barrage is basically just like corrosion rain, basically. And as all of these like raindrops just kind of like hammer down, well, I guess it's more like rain missiles, kind of. But yeah, as these kind of just get showered, all of these will spread corrosive, and then that will then proc the passive, and then armor just gets, yeah, it just gets removed, and it's very, very good. This is also his subsume, and the augment for this adds viral to it. So in addition to just spreading a bunch of corrosive, you're also spreading a bunch of viral, and yeah, it's a pretty good augment. I think it's used in probably most of his builds. His second ability is Tidal Surge, and what this does is it turns him basically just into a wave. It's both a little bit of a movement tool and a little bit of a crowd control tool. It also makes him invincible as well, so it's kind of like a get off me or I'm going to go, yeet myself over here and get myself out of trouble. The augment mod for this is also pretty strong, but I'll touch on that when we're going over the build itself. But TLDR, it's basically a better rolling guard. And then now we've got Plunder. Plunder's very good. So when you go ahead and cast it, you go ahead and you take the armor from nearby enemies, and then this will, depending on how many enemies are around you, you can get your armor up to a max of, with my build and my power strength, it's 1700, so it's, really good and makes you pretty tanky. And then you can also get a bunch of corrosive damage on your weapons. For me right now at current, it's 458 percent extra corrosive damage. So yeah, bunch of tankiness, bunch of damage. Plunder, very, very good. You're going to want to make sure that this is pretty much up as often as you can, and you can just go ahead and recast it and whatnot. So yeah, very, very good ability. And then his normal 4 is Tentacle Swarm, but right now I'm using Nourish for, well, all the obvious reasons. It's Nourish, but this does not have to be Nourish. There's a plethora of other subsumes that just work really, really well on Hydroid, like Roar, like Raffle Advance if you wanted to just go ahead and run a melee Warframe. You could do Condemn if you wanted to do like more shield gaining shenanigans or shield tanking shenanigans. You could run Bright Bonnet. There's honestly just a lot of different subsume options for Hydroid. I just kind of lean more towards Nourish is all. So we're going to start off with the build here, and I'm going to go over the mods here. This is the shield tanking version of the build that I'm going to show off here. So if you didn't want to do the whole persistence thing, this might be what you want. So let's just kind of go ahead and get started here. So I got Brief Respite, Prime Sheer-Footed, Tidal Impunity, this is the augment for the second ability that I talked about earlier, but I'll touch more on this here in a second. Viral Tempest, this is the augment for the first ability, and this just adds a bunch of viral status to his one. Very, very good, very, very strong. Fast Deflection, Prime Redirection, Prime Flow, Blind Rage, Stretch, Prime Continuity, he really likes duration. And then for the Arcanes, we've got Arcane Aegis. This is going to help with all of the shields. And then when this procs, he's basically effectively immortal, so that's really great. And then Molt Augmented to just go ahead and add a bunch of ability strength. So I'm going back to the Tidal Impunity, this being the augment for his second ability. So this is basically, just like I mentioned earlier, this is basically just a better rolling guard because you can just, it's an ability, so you can just kind of spam it, and then you also get status immunity, and then that duration is based off the duration that you have in your build. So yeah, if you're still in a pinch or whatnot, you can just spam cast this and you're fine. Like, the survivability with this build, especially with his second augment, is very, very good. And yeah, it's kind of hard to kill him. If you get up to like high enough levels or whatnot, it can be maybe a little bit easier. You know, you're going into like the level 9000s or you're running circuit or whatnot. Then what you might want to do is go ahead and sub out the prime redirection here for maybe catalyzing shields and just focus on shield gating, and then also just spamming your 2 as well to go ahead and just be invincible like that way. That way you've got 2 different ways to go ahead and live. That might be necessary. Also, if you didn't want to, do all that, but you wanted to just stick with this, what you might also want to do is go with Augur Reach instead of just the normal stretch, because then this way when you're spamming your abilities, because you're going to be spamming your 1 a lot. But what this will do is for the, for sacrificing a little bit of range, you're going to be getting a lot of shields, and that can help you with survivability as well. So if you are having issues, even still with this build and whatnot, with surviving, I would go ahead and maybe just sub out Augur Reach for stretch and then see how that is. I don't need that myself, but that doesn't mean that you don't. So if you're running into those issues, I would try that swap and see how you like it. And then Fast Deflection is really good to just go ahead and then make our shield region just be really, really quickly, and then spamming our 2 to either have this proc or just have our shields proc back naturally is very good. And yeah, this is basically just the first build, and this works really well. Again, if you don't really care for the persistent shtick, this build is very, very, very good. And then I've got a little looting build here for you. This is using his Tentacle Storm because, well, this is the augment that allows him to have the loot and whatnot. I personally don't use the looting side of him too often, but I have had to use it a little bit. So yeah, I've got a little build here for it. And yeah, it works decently well. I'm running Condemn on this one to just go ahead and help with the shield tanking and shield gaining shenanigans that I can do. And yeah, if I could recommend like one change, this build itself is honestly fairly fine, but I only have the Umbral Vitality here because of, well, this build. So if you didn't want to go ahead and run the Umbral Vitality, I would just go ahead and recommend, since we can't run the 2 augment, to just go ahead and substitute that out for Rolling Guard, because you're going to need some way to like get some statuses off you and whatnot, especially if you're taking this into maybe like higher levels. So yep, again, not a build that I use all the time, just something I kind of pull out here or there, but this has worked fine for me in the past. And then this is the big update one with the Arcane Persistence. So with this, we're running Gloom in the 4th slot. So with Gloom and all the lifesteal and then the slow, it makes surviving very, very easily, especially with just the constant spamming of Tempest Barrage, because this is going to hit all the enemies, and then you're going to constantly be healed as well. And then with the enemies being slow, they're not going to be able to pose too much of a threat to you. And then I do have Growing Power up here, so Growing Power with the extra power strength will be up to an 80% slow. So I think 80% slow feels about right, because with the Hunter Adrenaline that I have, you do want to get hit, but of course you don't want to get hit too often, and I think 80% is kind of that sweet spot. So yeah, I do like this pairing, even though I feel like it is just a tiny bit of an anti-synergy. It does work fairly well, and our range isn't too high, so other enemies that aren't caught in gloom will still be able to shoot us, and then we can still go ahead and regenerate energy. And then a little fun trick if you did want to try this, but you don't want to use two Umbra Forma, little trick that you can do here is to go ahead and just use an unranked umbral fiber, and then you can remove one of these umbral formas here. Little note though with this is you're going to have to make sure that Plunder's pretty much active at all times. So yeah, if this goes down, your persistence is no longer active. So that's like the main benefit of just having the full like Umbra Forma here and then the other Umbral Forma into the actual build. And yeah, this build works very well. I've used it basically since the old piece, and I've had like zero issues with it, and this is really strong. I don't think too much else needs to be said about this. It's just, persistence and gloom, and I think that that's just a really strong pairing nowadays. So to kind of, harken back to what he used to be and to show something a little different, I think I'm going to show off the shield like tankiness and whatnot build that I have to just like show off like a little bit something different. So that's going to be what I show, and then let's move on to the companion. So I'll show this off first. If you did want to go ahead and use the persistence build, you're going to want a bunch of health orbs to go ahead and spawn, to go ahead and work with the arcane blessing that I have in the build, and spare parts and Sith Deconstruct are going to work very well with that. I just like using Death Cube because of all the extra energy that I get from him and whatnot, because that pairs really well with Gloom and then its constant energy drain. So yeah, just really good synergies all around. But since I'm going to be showing off the shield tanking build, you can either do one of two things. You can do Worm, and then this will make it so that also don't have to worry about status effects too much either, like in case if they do just kind of happen to you. Worm will be like an extra protection for that. But with how good his augment for his 2 is, I think I'm just going to go with Taxon here and just run this and then show off how Taxon can help you with shield tanking and shield gating and whatnot. And then this is the build that I am running for the Tazakor. I'm just spreading a little bit more viral and whatnot. If you're still having issues with surviving, I would recommend doing this corrosive and cold because of how the status with this just kind of works. The cold that's in here, the enemies get frozen really quickly. So yeah, they'll just be like frozen in place and then they won't really pose much of a problem. So again, if you're having issues with surviving, I would go ahead and run this build right here for the weapon. And then we're going to move on to the weapons themselves. I'm running the Nataruk, but this is more so just to have primary dexterity here for the melee, because I just wanted to show off the melee for the build. But yeah, this is what that kind of looks like. And then if you wanted to use it just naturally, you would just go with something like this, and then you could remove longbow sharp shots out for something different if you wanted to. But yeah, I'm just going to be running this as a dexterity. And then I'm going to be running the Ocucore. You don't have to run the Ocucore. I just beam weapons and how his corrosive works and just the shredding and how fast it is. Beam weapons are really good with Hydroid, so that's just what I'm using. And this is the build for the Ocucore that I have right now. So the big thing with the Ocucore is that you really want Sentient Surge. This mod basically makes this weapon and makes it be just fuck busted. And it's a really strong mod to have. And it just brings everything here and together. Nothing else in my build I think is really all that different with the exception of Ice Storm here. So instead of the 60/60 cold mod, I have Ice Storm, and then this gives me extra magazine capacity. So in case if I may be trying to like just pepper down something that's a little bit tankier, I can have more ammo in my magazine to go ahead and use, and then kill more enemies to go ahead and then proc the Sentient Surge, and then like just get all these things just kind of working and going here. So that's just why I run it. If you wanted to use the 60-60 or the 90 or whatever you want there, go ahead and go for it. This is just what I use, and I think it's fun. And then to go with the pirate theme, I'm going to be using the Nami Solo. This is, of course, the Incarnate, and these are the build paths that I have. And then this is the build. Nothing too crazy, of course, just your stereotypical melee influence shenanigans here. Not really breaking any ground or nothing, just a really, really strong melee weapon. I think this is the strongest melee weapon, actually, but yeah, if I'm wrong, someone please correct me, but yeah, just a really good melee, and I just wanted to, I think it goes well with his little pirate theme and whatnot, so there is that. And then I'm rocking Zeneric. If you wanted to use Madurai and just have more ability strength, because, maybe you want the slow of the gloom or whatnot to be a little higher, you're more than welcome to do that, but I'm not going to be showing that off in this one. I'm just going to go ahead and run this and show off that the shield tanking build is still strong, because I'm sure that we all can kind of tell that the persistence build, I think, is pretty good, because most things being paired with persistence and gloom, I think, are usually pretty good. Kind of a match made in heaven, as it were. All right, here we go.
And the enemy calls for a
Get Nourish going.
They have just shut down all systems. I'm sending life support.
All right, shouldn't be. Go ahead and use this. Oop, can't use my 3. I don't have energy. There we go. I've got energy now. So use the 3. Got Plunder going. There we go. Get some passive energy here. There we go. Ink. I'll recast this. Yeah, Akicore just doing a lot of work, and as you can see, it's just shredding everything. Because of how the corrosive works and how beam weapons work, with how they just spread a bunch of status and everything, it's a lot. Yeah, things just don't stand much of a chance right now, really. Go ahead and spam these things. There we are. Making sure that everything is up and going. And yeah, I need to be affected by a status or something so I can show off the augment for his 2. But I'm not sure if anything's going to be able to necessarily get that close. Oh, there we go, puncture. So then 2. Yep, there we go. See, Tidal Impurity is active, and then I have, well, it's 20 seconds, but, it ticks down right away. But, yeah, no, and then, as I mentioned earlier, you can just kind of spam it, because, well, if you're going to have energy, and, yeah, you can just spam it and just be invincible like this. It's pretty good. Oop, come on now. There we go. Oop, I need to reactivate Plunder. I do wish Plunder lasted a little longer, but there we go. A bunch of damage, bunch of armor. Armor really won't affect too much with the shield tanking or shield gating build that you do, but it will help like a little bit with survivability in case you're caught with your pants down, so that's nice. But figured I'd show this off because I'm sure that everyone's just so used to seeing persistence builds and, showcases and whatnot, so figured I'd show this off to just kind of show that, like, you don't need to have the persistence build or anything like that. Hydroid is still just really, really, really good. So, yeah. Just thought I'd highlight some of that here. Use that again. I did not get as much armor as I'd like. Let's see here. There we go. That's fine. Alright. Alright, I think I've used the Akicore enough to just go ahead and just shish kebab all of them, so let's just break out the Nami Solo here and just kind of shred through things. Yep, and here we go. Oop, need more, I need that. Need to also be using my 1 a little bit more often. There we go. Spreading all that goodness. Yep, this thing's still as strong as I remember it being. I haven't used this thing in a little bit, but yep, still a behemoth. Boy, and then not to mention with, oops, I think I did that wrong. Oh, no, I didn't. And then not to mention with everyone going back into the circuit here soon with the new Incarnans, I think more new players will be looking forward to getting Incarnans. So if you're a new player and you're watching this, hopefully, you know, if you see the Nami Solo Incarnan, yeah, grab it. Like, for the love of God, grab it. It's very strong. Oop. How dare you? A little bit of that. A little bit of, oop, there's no one over there. If I looked at my map, I could know that. 33 million on a spin. That's nice. On a nice little heavy attack spin. Yeah, this weapon with influence is just, it is just mayhem. Am I not going to get invaded by an Acolyte? I mean, I don't blame them. I wouldn't want to mess with any of this either, but man, that's funny. Not as much damage as I'd like. Let's see if I can't try and get a few more. Let's see here. Group them up. Then use my... There we go. There we are. And then that's how you can use the two to go ahead and group things up as well. So, yep, he's got some different options, which is always nice to see in Warframes. But yeah, I haven't really been in any dire need or whatnot. Granted, if you are in... you know, like a heavily like status affected like area or whatnot, you might want to run Worm over Taxon, but as what like you can see, I've been more than fine. Huh. No Acolyte. Alright, well, is what it is, I guess. Alright, so let's just go ahead and just kind of cut this off. Well, if you stuck around to the end, I appreciate it. I hope you liked the video. I hope you give at least one of the builds from Hydroid a shot. I had to use him recently in like an EDA or ET, I forget what it was, but after using him, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, he's really good. So yeah, hope you liked the video. Hope you learned something. Thanks for watching. Take care, and later.